So many different fitness gyms now. By far, we will be the best.
You guys going back on tour soon? Have you guys played in front of live audiences?
We've not played a show. As a matter of fact, we've played like live together as a band like twice.
Because you guys are like relatively, brand new.
Super brand new. The band actually started right at the beginning of the pandemic. So the band that I was in prior was a band called Nine Electric.
Mm-hmm.
And the singer was this guy Ron Underwood. He was actually from a band called Opiate for the Masses, which is out from your way. I don't know if you know that band, but anyways, we did that band for 10 years. We made a lot of stuff happen, but it broke up in January 2020. And I started this band the next day.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I mean, this is what I do, and luckily the drummer in Reddstar, Russell Ray, he was playing in that band right at the end there. So I kind of had somebody to start it with, you know what I mean? It was like, it's not a fun notion to start a new band, especially when you've been in one for a long time and it just implodes and you're like, well, what are you going to do? I basically had a couple of choices, and my choices were quit, which I would never do.
Right.
To join something else, which is, always seems like an easy option, but it's not. Because, I'm very particular, and I only fit in certain things. As it doesn't mean I'm, just if I think I can fit in a bunch of things, it doesn't mean they're going to want me. So you got to find the right thing, and then starting fresh, which is, I like a brand new, fresh band, but it was just, do I really want to start another one? And it took me all of a day to be like, yeah, I better start a new one. And
oh my God,
he was on board, and we got going. And for about 2 months, we got it going. And then we had a different guy playing bass with us for a couple sessions. He didn't work out. We brought on Eric, who's a longtime friend of Russell's and I, and he'd been in a bunch of other bands that that we knew of. And we started playing, and then boom, the pandemic hit. And it was like, whoa, this is trippy. Like, well, what are we going to do? At first it was just like, there was going to be basically every band that had ever existed was going on tour in early 2020. I have to remember that. And that was another thing that was frustrating too, thinking of like, well, wow, we're going to have to start a new band and have all this kind of competition. No one's going to pay attention,
Right.
So when the pandemic hit, it actually allowed us to kind of like reset, because everybody got stopped, unfortunately. And from there, we felt good about that, but we're like, well, what are we going to do? We can't really do anything. We're not even supposed to go anywhere in our own city, let alone look for other musicians. So we started looking for a singer, and we had a couple of guys around this way who were interested. I remember one guy was interested, and we were interested in him a little bit, but he was afraid to travel during the early pandemic. So we just wrote him off and ended up finding Damien, our singer, just by pure stars aligning, I think. He wrote to Russ on Instagram. He was in another band, and he just wrote to him to catch up, see how his band was handling the pandemic issues and stuff like that. And Russ asked him, he goes, hey man, I got this new band, you would like to check it out? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll check it out. And then boom, we just went from there. He basically went and recorded demos, got stoked on what we were doing. And I would say about less than a month later, we went out to Indiana to record.
So it was kind of a blessing in disguise, you'd say, because like you got the chance to not only form, a good repertoire, good chemistry with the guys, but at the same time you were able to build, marketing, branding, social media, all that other stuff.
Right.
That like a normal, like up and coming musician doesn't think about. I feel like my brother's, I'm trying to get him to like get into, like you got to start posting your stuff on social media. You got to start marketing this, that. And he's not about it. He's like the business side of music, especially like people that hear of it on the outside, like me as an outsider. Some people just think it's like toxic. They try to just get stuff out of you. But like, if you're marketing yourself, like you're going into business for yourself.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, everybody else is doing it for, everybody. If you think about it on a really big, deep philosophical viewpoint, everybody is marketing themselves somehow. Even if you just post what you ate that day, that's marketing yourself. You're promoting your lifestyle. And you might not trying to be monetizing it, but it's like you're putting something out there, and that's what everybody does these days. So when we were first starting, one of the really great, numerous great things that happened with the pandemic is that we were able to start putting ourselves out there and not have to compete with so much. Bands were busy doing a lot of stuff. I mean, I guess I'd have to say that they were online more so than normal because that's all they could do. But it was interesting how they handled it, because those touring machines, when they weren't able to do that, they really showed how much they were missing touring. And that, I think, enabled like a band like ours who was starting to be like, well, cool, we aren't missing touring because we've never done anything. We haven't toured, so we don't have to compete on that level, right? We can just we can present ourselves and fresh and new and kind of like, here we are kind of thing, which is what we did. And that was really helpful too, because it would have been a much more difficult presentation to get yourselves in the eyes and ears of people when they're at a concert every other day,
So the new single's out, STFU, and you guys again have not played in front of a live audience together yet.
No, we have.
Very interesting, because I feel like that's a very nerve-wracking thing. Like, what you sound like when you're together, but what do you guys sound like in front of people?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's got to be a nerve-wracking thing. Like, you guys know how to play in front of each other, and you guys have a good chemistry. But in front of live audience is different. It's
not. We've played so many shows, and we know what we're doing. Like, it's a very seasoned band. I mean, if anything, we'll just be excited. It's like we've got that down. That's kind of the easy part, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
The tougher stuff was like trying to navigate between where we live. Two of us live in California. Our singer Damien lives in Jersey, and Russell, the drummer, lives in Florida.
Oh, wow.
So if anything, we've just had to make sure that every time we're doing something, whether we're going to record in Indiana with Sahaj is in the band, from the band Raw. We're actually going on tour with them in August. But it's just being able to get out there, maximize your time, maximize what you're doing while we're recording. The guys have been here twice to shoot videos. Actually, they're here now, and we just shot a video all this week. And not all this week, but the last couple of days. And they're here all week. So we take these opportunities when we have these trips together. They're usually about anywhere from 5 to 7 to 8 days. That's how much we're together. We maximize that time, So normally when a band lives like near each other, you go down to rehearsal studios and you play and you kind of get ready. What we're going to end up doing is Eric and I, who live in California, we're going to fly to Florida. Damien will fly to Florida. All this stuff is there. All the gear is there. We'll rehearse there. We'll get ready for the tour, and then we'll head on the road.
Wow. So that's got to be exciting to finally, get to do this stuff. Because did you even produce the music video for STFU over Zoom? Like, everything was just, that had to be super cool. Like, exciting. Cool. Like, you got to get it done, but difficult.
Right. Brian Cox, who directs our videos, he actually works for Bring Me the Horizon. He's worked for Cypress Hill and Hollywood Undead and stuff like that. He's a longtime friend. He's living in the UK right now. He's married and he's out there. He's been out there for about a year and change. So we knew we wanted him. I knew for a fact I wanted him to do the video, and the guys in the band, a couple of guys in the band already knew him and know his work and stuff like that. So I said, we got to work with Brian. And I remember when I approached Brian about it, I started talking to him over Instagram. And I said, Brian, I don't know if you're in California or you're going to be in California anytime soon right now, but I said, I want you to do our video. And he's like, man, I'd love to. And then as it got to be more of a serious conversation, he was like, dude, I don't know how I'm going to do this because I'm not there and I'm not going to be able to be there. And I'm like, well, what about Zoom? I go, I could have sworn I saw you do something on Zoom. He goes, yeah, I did it. He goes, I didn't like it. So, and he go, man, we got to make it happen, And I started pitching him ideas, and he got all really excited. And we got on a FaceTime call, and we started talking about it. And he goes, look, we can do this. He goes, if we do it at this specific spot, I feel comfortable doing it there. I want Kevin Garcia, who's a good friend of his, to do camera work. Kevin actually just co-directed that Korn Monumental live broadcast that they did. So as long as it was all the right people were involved, it was doable. And then we showed up to Mix One Studios in Anaheim and shot it there, and Brian was in the computer, much like you and I are doing right now.
That's unbelievable. It's amazing, moving forward, how many people are probably gonna not have to do it, because I feel like in person is so much easier. But
right.
Now that we know how to use this stuff, because a year and a half ago, I didn't know how to use Zoom. Now it's second nature.
Right.
It's easy to get in a Zoom call.
To Brian's defense, he would prefer to be in person. So he just did the video that we did the last 2 days. He did it again. He had to do Zoom again. And he also has to really trust his DP or co-director who's here, because they're his eyes. Well, he can only see so much. He has to give him his shot designs and his wish list of what he wants for the editing. Now he's going to get it and talk to us and tell us what he needs from us, but he can't be there, and he wants to be here, But he can't. He's in the UK and he can't. They're still in lockdown there. There's there's a lot of fees that you have to pay to be able to even try to come back here, because he's a U.S. citizen. But they, if he comes back here, he's fine. His wife is not a U.S. citizen. She'll have to quarantine. When he goes back, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, and it costs like a couple grand apparently. So just not in the cards for him to come here and do it. But we wanted to work with Brian again. He's our guy, and we said, hey, it's not the most ideal situation, but we can do it, and we know we're getting really high end output. Let's just do it again. And we did.
You want it done, we'll find a way to get it done at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And you guys being such a brand new band, like I know you, Russell, and Eric kind of were playing together, and Damien was the last one who kind of joined. And that kind of, put like the icing on the cake when it came to your overall sound. Because Reddstar, like right off the bat, even, the background you have there, the logo for Reddstar, it's inspired by Rage Against the Machine, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's like, we're not trying to just be like derivative and some sort of clone of them. I mean, like they're very inspirational. One of the reasons the name came about is because I had a shirt with a Reddstar on it, and I love that. I just love that design and that look. And you're going into dangerous waters if you try to be like them, as activist driven as they are, because no one else but like the Clash and a few other bands can touch that kind of thing, because you have to be straight up dedicated to a lot of activist causes, a lot of left-wing things. And even though we're into those things and are knowledgeable about them, we would come off as really trite and really ridiculous if we were trying to spit that kind of stuff. It's a different time now. They're even different about it, but they're the top shelf liquor of that kind of thing. If anything, what we're doing is there's a activism within, ourselves and what we're doing and how we became a band and how we kind of, overcame the adversity of pandemic and stuff like that to basically fight against just anything that holds you back, whether it's yourself or the government or your neighbor or a stoplight, just persevere, and I know a lot of people like to think of like a Reddstar as communism. Mm-hmm. It's not that. Maybe we can look at it as communism against just anything that's just, shackling yourself to something, what I mean? That's just bringing you down. And yeah, of course, we're inspired by the music, but being that the 4 individuals in the band, we all have different tastes. We bring all those tastes into what we do. And then Sahaj, who's like the 5th member,
right,
he's a brilliant musician and a brilliant producer. He can take those things that we bring to the table and be like, if you do this, it's too typical and it'll sound like this. Let's try this and let's bring this into the fold and let's make it fresher here. And let's drop that part. And, he really understands us, which is a great thing. And we feel very comfortable expressing ourselves musically and artistically and as people with him. And that just helps the sound, so if anything, the sound should just be very, very energetic and make the listener feel like anything is possible.
So when you, Russell, and Eric are playing and you guys are getting comfortable and you're looking for a vocalist, did you immediately, initially think rapper? Or was it more along the lines you kind of were just searching, you were trying to mixing and matching things, and all of a sudden it's just like, that'll sound great. And then that's when Damien comes along. How many different vocalists did you try out?
Right. I love that you asked that, because the very first time that question was posed was by Russell, actually. And we had been playing for a number of weeks, and I had all these tons of demos that were from my previous band that weren't going to get used, and just, they weren't right. I didn't hear, they weren't going to be working for that band in any way, shape, or form. And then when the band broke up, I was actually like, man, it's a shame if these songs don't use that. I want to use them. It's like, this is the sound I want to go into. So we start playing, and once Eric was playing with us, we got a bunch of just rehearsal of the 3 of us in. We're playing. It was like a ghost town out here. Nobody was on the streets. You weren't even supposed to be out anywhere, but we kept going to the rehearsal studio. And by the time we got to the part where we start talking about a singer, Russ goes like this, and this is verbatim. This is not made up. He goes, "What are you thinking for a vocalist?" And I go, "There has to be rapping in this." And he goes, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, I want that. It has to have that. I go, "I want singing too, but there has to be rapping." Because I love that cadence and the flow. If it's a really good rapper and somebody who has attitude and vibe and flow and energy, and that puts a different spin on rock music and funky type rock music, and that hits really close to me, where it's like with bands like Rage and Chili Peppers and, Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit and those kind of bands and a few others. I just like that energy, and I even like, even early Slipknot, there's not really rapping per se, but I know Corey Taylor was very influenced by Beastie Boys and stuff like that. And there's a cadence that just just flows way different than a singer. Now, when it comes to singers, I love like Lane Staley from Alice in Chains, Chris Cornell, a handful of others. But unless you find that kind of world of a singer, I don't love typical singing on a lot of rock music. It just feels very middle of the road to me, and I didn't want that in this band, you know. And that's not to put anybody down. That's just saying that's not what I wanted. So we needed rapping, and at first we thought we were going to have to find a rapper and a singer because they don't often do both well, you know. So to find Damien and have him be, you know, really great at both was like it blew us away. So when he went and recorded, we found him, we talked to him, heard his old band, heard his singing. I go, that's really cool. I like singing. I want, you know, I'm interested to see how he is with rapping. He went and he lives in Jersey. He went to Philadelphia or somewhere in Pennsylvania to record, sent us the demos back. I listened for about 15, 20 seconds, sold. I go, this is the guy. It's him. It's him. You know, the rapping sounded great. And then when he got to the chorus, I was like, money. I go, dude can sing. That's our guy. And then from there, it was just like, it was on.
So before you brought him in, though, because, again, you wanted a rapper, but at the same time, you wanted to kill two birds with one stone, in a sense, because you wanted someone who could rap. You also wanted someone who could sing if you wanted to go that route. What type of style were you looking for? Like you mentioned the Lane Staleys, the Chris Cornells, you know, the melodies and the harmonies. Like what type were you looking for?
Singing wise, you know, that was a tough one. It was I can't say that we had anything in particular. You know, somebody that could sing with a lot of energy and a lot of you know, angst and really put their heart into it and stuff like that. And I don't know that I had anybody in particular in mind. I don't think we were modeling in either thing, the rapping or the singing, after any one person per se. You know what I mean? I think it would have made things too narrow. I know I can tell you this. The ad that we had like, you know, because we put an ad out. That's where it was, you know, I was putting it on. We were all putting it on Facebook and Instagram, and we were putting it in, you know, little places that people might be looking for musicians, like the what is it called? I forget. I'm blanking out right now. There's a website out here that everybody sells stuff on and looks for ads and stuff like that. And Craigslist. Sorry, Craigslist. We had Craigslist ads going, and I remember it had Rage Against the Machine, Chili Peppers, Bring Me the Horizon, Pantera, like maybe like Nothing More or somebody like that. Couple others that I'm Linkin Park, and just anything kind of like in that wheelhouse. That was the blueprint, but it didn't have to be any one of those things. It wasn't like we're looking for some Chester Bennington type, right, and then a rapper that sounds like Zach from Rage, or raps like, you know, Fred Durst does or whatever, or sings like Ollie from Bring Me. It was just kind of like, have all these sensibilities in mind, and we have all this music, and if you have something that can mix those together and have your own thing, because that was the most important thing, you got to have your own thing, you know. Hopefully you can rock over this. Right. You know, I think you even said that. I'm like, we need somebody to fucking spit fire over this or some shit like that. You know what I mean? These are what we're looking for. And, you know, even though we're not a metal band, we love Pantera and we love that groove. Pantera is groove metal, and we wanted that groove and those heavy riffs and that kind of like that's almost that bluesy metal kind of thing, but it had like a funky feel to it at times, you know. We wanted that in there. So, but that didn't mean we want somebody to just scream over the shit, you know what I mean? And sound like we're trying to be Pantera, you know? Right. We wanted somebody to be able to go there, you know, because you can get somebody who does rapping and they don't like all kinds of different heavy metal bands or rock bands or whatever. Right. And then you can get a singer's like, I don't like rap. You know, it had to be somebody who was not going to cut anything off.
Right.
They had to be open to everything and open to making something unique based on those handful of artists and the tons of other artists that we didn't bother to even list, because, you know, if you start telling people like, man, I love Led Zeppelin too, and I want to do some DMX in there, or, yep, you know, new rappers and newer rock artists, you'll just throw them off, you know.
He's well-rounded. He's well-versed. So right. How quickly did you guys gel? Because again, you guys bring him in, he's what, 25 years old? You know,
26. Yeah.
26. He's a kid, you know, like.
Yeah. Super quick. So, I mean, he went and demoed over the songs, right? He did those 3 songs, sent them back. So he got with it quick. I mean, we had met, we talked on the phone a bunch. We were all doing these Zoom calls, you know? So once that was on, I booked studio time with Haj very quickly. So I think it was like April when we did that, late March, early April, when we did those demos, we started talking. We went out to Sahaj's at the end of May. So here's the funny thing. We had never been in the same room together, all four of us, and we wouldn't record it. And two of the guys were still in other bands. I was not in my band anymore because it broke up. Russ was playing in that band, but Russ was in another band that was still functioning. Damien was in another band that was, still trying to function. And then Eric had been out of the band he'd been in for a couple of years, So there was a little bit of like cheating, moonlighting going on to see what was going on. But basically, in a nutshell, everybody wasn't happy with what they had done before. I was lucky enough to, have my thing end. Eric's had ended a couple of years prior, but those two guys were hanging on like a lot of people do, kind of going like, well, I've been in this for a while. It doesn't feel right. I don't want to be doing it anymore. But, much like when people don't break up in a relationship properly, they're kind of like, they're seeing somebody else, but they're still with their significant other a little bit. You know what I mean? It was kind of like that. And then once we got over to the record and got shit going, everybody knew it was like, we're done with those old bands. They went home and quit those bands, and this band started.
That's very interesting, because how long were you with your band before this?
10 years.
Yeah, so like those first few years, things are clicking. Obviously, you're doing
right.
your job, and then all of a sudden, things aren't meshing as well as they used to. So,
what
happened towards the end there?
I'm a super driven, hardcore person. You know what I mean? I have no qualms about saying that. Everybody that knows me well knows that I'm that way, right? So I gave my all to the band that I was in for 10 years, right? It ended. I was done with it. I don't look back. I'm not much of a reminiscer. I don't kind of like dwell on things. I move forward. I think in some other lifetime, I must have been a shark because they only move forward. So I knew, like, once I made that decision, which I made it very quickly to start another band, I was 1000% into being in that new band. So there was a little bit of like, I'm like, hey, I'm like, yeah, you guys, you're in another band still, but I don't know, man. Like, let's do this. We're doing this, And that was like before even Damien was around. So once we got out there, I mean, once when you commit to getting on a plane and going to record with people, you're doing something there. I know a lot of people record and a lot of people do stuff, and sometimes that shit never sees the light of day, and they just go backwards and they go, I'm going back to my other band or whatever, I pretty much made it obvious to everybody that that's not really an option. And I go, if you try to pull that option, you're gone, and making an ultimatum like that, it's risky because you could easily get them like, well, fuck you. I'm going to go back to this other thing. It's already got time in it, and it's already got a name, and things are going, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking like, well, you're not happy and it's not popping off, and this is going to fucking pop off, so let's do this. And I didn't even have to say that because everybody could feel it. There used to be a time before, like back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and stuff like that, music was so live oriented that you would play live a million times, then you'd go record. Somebody would swoop you up, a record label, and then you finally get in the studio and they'd capture your live sound. Usually. Nowadays, it's different. You don't have to play together, and you just go record. Now, there's a lot of music out there that doesn't have a very strong energy because they haven't played together, or it's very studioized. I think Sahaj did a really great job of taking the music that we brought to him and making it feel, capturing the energy that we all had being there together, because everybody was excited. It was almost like, you got let out of jail and you get to go see a woman for the first time. That shit's on, you know what I mean? And that's what the music was like. And even though we had never played and we were in there recording, I 100% feel very confident that it has that energy like we had been playing. And mind you, Russ, Eric, and myself have been playing. We've been playing, for a couple months together. So what I love is that it doesn't feel like a bunch of guys who've been playing together, but then some singer who just slapped shit on the top of it. He fits right in there like he was in the room with us that whole time. And look, if I want to be like very new age, modern, hippie-ish about it, maybe he was. I
mean, that was kind of what happened with, Audio Slave. Like,
right.
Came from Rage, and then you slap Chris Cornell. I mean, if you slap Cornell on anything, it's going to work, I feel like.
Right.
It work in any sense of genre, I feel like, as a rock singer. But that's very interesting that you guys were able to, again, during these weird times especially, kind of form that, the three of you bringing him in, and at the same time, the four of you coming together and gelling, being able to put stuff. So STFU is the single, but you guys have an EP coming out later on in the year?
Yeah, it's all very, very up in the air. We already have 9 songs recorded. How we're going to release them is what's up in the air. Rock fans are very much in that vein of like needing a proper release feel satisfied. You know, they need an EP, they need a record. You know, and the way that we feel in this band is that music is very disposable these days, and when you put out a full record, people get excited about it, but in the algorithms and the Spotify's and those in iTunes and Apple Music and stuff like that, your music can become dead. You have a bunch of tracks that don't get their just due, because there's a lot of people who will go to your page and only look at your top 10 songs and then just disregard everything else. And it's a shame to put in that much effort into like your deeper tracks in your record, and then have them just never really be paid attention to. So what we're really loving right now is doing song by song, and then that can become a record. You know what I mean? Because it's like, if you're the person who really needs an album or really needs a disc, you know, which I don't know about you, but I don't listen to CDs anymore. I listen to Apple Music all day, every day. And I use Spotify whenever I need to, blah, 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 right? And I like CDs. I got a whole huge rack shelf over there of CDs. They're almost like records now. They're like a collector's item kind of thing, right? And if somebody has a CD player and you got to hear CD, we'll play it. But you have music right on your phone. So why do you need a CD? You know what I mean? So for me, I'm like, hey, you can go song by song, and then by the time like a year is up, there's your whole record. And it's an experience. It's like something that you get to roll out for like an entire year. And it just, one more piece of the puzzle gets put together, you know? And rap artists and pop artists do this shit left and right, you know, and it works. Yeah. So we want to do that right now, and we want everybody to take the journey with us. And, you know, we'll see how that goes. And, you know, if we have to make a left turn or a right turn and do something kind of different, then we'll think about that when we get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different way of distributing stuff. Like you said, like the modern day, you again, write your best material and then gradually put it out. And then eventually, you know, you put it on a vinyl or a record, as opposed to having 2 or 3 hit songs on a record and then just having like 10 or 11 songs that are just fluff that nobody really, you know, engages with.
Right. You know, some kind of thing like off the top of my head, and these are just different discussions we've had and stuff like that, and just different ideas. But I think a possible fun idea could be, let's say that this band records 15 songs, right? And we put them out as time, you know, goes on, like every 6 weeks or whatever. And then by a year and a half, 2 years, they're all out, right? And then somebody wants a record. Why don't we go and do something like this? Hey, you guys get to vote for the top 10 or 11 songs that are going to be on the actual album. And then that'll be it. You know what I mean? And once they're picked, we'll press that. And when you want to buy it, you can. You know what I mean? And then it's like interactive, instead of like, here's what we picked, and, you know, you got to deal with it. And, you know, basically songs 4 through 11 aren't getting as much spins because the first 4 have been out longer.
Right.
You know?
I mean, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
That would be very... That's actually a really great idea, especially.
Yeah. Hopefully no one steals it because I'm talking about it here.
I know, that's what always seems to happen. Like, you think of something really cool, then like a week later, it's just mainstream already. You're
right.
Like,
I mean, a lot of people have been doing it. It's nothing new. Rock bands are trying to do it. I think rock bands are more receptive of it these days, but it's just not their thing. I mean, the first words out of their mouth is like, "When's the CD?" And I kind of just laugh, and I'm just like, "Later." It's later. It's later on. Like, you can't possibly tell me you need a CD when I know you're talking to me on your phone. Close me out, you know, stop commenting to me and go open one of those 2 or 3 major streaming platforms and just listen there. You know what I mean?
It's amazing how like the kind of like the rock nation, like rock fans in general, just kind of like go back to what it was like in the early 2000s or even like the mid 90s, as opposed to like, if you're like strictly a rap and hip hop fan, like that's the norm. Nobody has CDs. Nobody has. Right. You know? It's
comfort. I think it's a difficulty in like accepting new things and wanting to hold on to older times, stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. Whatever you hold dear to yourself, that's amazing, right? But you have to evolve. I look at it this way. It's like, people do their banking on their phone. A lot of people. I know a lot of people still go to the bank, but they do banking on their phone. And that's like something really, really, really important, right? Because that's your money. If you're willing to open up an app on your phone and look at your account and move money around or pay for things, you surely can listen to music on a streaming platform, because it's somebody else's music and it's speaking to you in whatever way that it does, hopefully a positive way. But it isn't your currency. It isn't something that you had to work for and earn. It's a luxury, for lack of a better term, you know? So again, I'm thinking like, that's just the thing. It's like, if you're willing to mess with your money online, you can definitely listen to a song.
Oh, 100%. And again, you're going to be listening to the best material that you're putting out there, as opposed to, again, 2 or 3 songs on a record, the rest being that. But at the same time, you know, you growing up a rock fan, whether, you know, it's Led Zeppelin, Sabbath, that early stuff, you know, going to Guns N' Roses, the grunge,
Right.
Nirvana, Soundgarden, whatever. Like, if you're a true fan, you're listening to all of those songs. Like, you're listening to songs that nobody's ever heard before on a mainstream level, songs that they didn't play on the radio, you know? So,
well,
like,
I love records. I love records, and I love like all the like. You know, there was a different time. You know, it's like in the '60s and '70s, like, you know, late '60s, Beatles mostly with records, because they really broke the mold for records. It was all singles in the '60s, you know, but they were such a big deal, and they were mobbed by people that they had to just go away, and their albums became their performances. So those things were just really top shelf, right? '70s became very album oriented as well, like super album oriented, but it was also like an extension of live, which is really cool. And I just love how all that stuff sounds and plays. And the '90s were very much like that too. But I think like you just said, it's like, let's take Guns N' Roses, for example. Guns N' Roses has a ton of great songs. Like one song that I absolutely love from Guns N' Roses is Night Train, right? But I know that if you go to their Spotify, Sweet Child of Mine is number 1. And there's a bunch of people who will find out about Guns N' Roses and listen to that song, but they'll never hear Night Train. You know what I mean? And that's a damn shame to me. You got to hear the whole record to hear Night Train. So knowing that for a new band, you can't screw with that, because we don't have that legacy. We don't have one of the greatest rock records ever underneath our belt at the moment, right? So I don't want my songs and great songs that we do as a band, like I said, you know, numerous times in this interview, to get swept under the rug. You know what I mean? I want them to get attention. And I think as we're starting out now, the best way to do that, I feel, is to put them out one at a time, so they get at least their 5, 6, 7 weeks of attention. And you can really get into it, as opposed to just having it go by in a blur with a bunch of songs and obsessing over song number 2 and 6 and ignoring 8 or 9, and, you know, that kind of thing, you know, and decide later. And, you know, when that doesn't work for us anymore, or we have to do something different, we already know how to do the normal routine. We can do that in our sleep. You know, it's like everybody can. Every band knows how to put a record together, and producers are great at helping with that and stuff like that. But, you know, I think it's fun to do something different. And I think it's fun to turn rock fans onto something different too. You know, it doesn't have to always be like it was before.
No, not at all. And that being said, just to top on that, are you guys constantly writing stuff, or are you just putting full on effort into one song at a time? Like, obviously STFU's number 1 for you guys right now, because that's the song you put out. But are you constantly writing material?
Yeah, I mean, we have a wealth of material. Like I said, I came from the other situation with a huge batch of songs. I mean, I have like 70 or 80 songs, and these guys have heard like most of them. They're always writing songs, so we have tons of stuff. And I would say, to be honest with you, the biggest problem is not having songs. It's like trying to decide which ones you're gonna do, and weeding some out, and kind of really loving that one, and kind of being like, well, Sahaj doesn't love that one, or this guy loves that one a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like, just trying to figure out what's the right direction and what's going to make sense, you know? But like I said, we already have 9 done, you know? So technically another song or 2, which we could bang out in a couple days, you know, with another trip, we'd have a record, you know? And, you know, one idea that we have, and Sahaj has no idea about this, but we are going on tour with him. And since we're going to be in his neck of the woods, he lives in Indiana, and we'll be in Florida. And we'll have just toured with him. We're gonna like, well, why don't we come up to the house, you know, the studio for like 3 or 4 days and do a couple more songs, you know? Because we are thinking like, hey, we should have records with material. And, you know, when labels start getting involved and things like that, they always want to hear as much stuff as you have. And, you know, and sometimes they don't like it when you burn your own songs. They feel like they can't put it on a record. That's a very rock thing. Rap and pop and stuff like that. They put out songs for 2 years, and then a record finally comes out, and nobody gives a shit that those songs were already on there.
Yep.
You know?
100%. I mean, and unless you're Guns N' Roses, you have like that one record that they still play to this day. You know,
right.
With anything else, Appetite for Destruction, that literally put them on the map, and it still has them on the map 30 years later. Right.
I mean, they only have 5 records in total, you know, and one of them was done with just Axl and all those other guys. And I like that record, actually. Chinese, it's a good record. You know, and they put out, when they did The Illusions, there was like a cajillion songs on those, you know, and it was pretty over the top. But they have a pretty vast catalog, and at the same time, it's strangely small, you know, when you think of them, you know, because you know, when they play live, they play like a million songs, and they play like 8 or 9 of them from Appetite. And that's pretty interesting. You know, I just find that interesting that they, some people can be like with them, like, oh, they're just a one record band. I'm like, no, they're not. They're amazing. You gotta.
Appetite for Destruction, like 4, 5, 6 of those songs you'll hear on the radio because those were their hit songs, and those were like the biggest songs of the 80s. They just blew everybody away, you know, like just that rap mentality of Axl's vocals and Slash's, you know, rhythm. Like, it's just the perfect pairing, and that's what got them. But yeah, you're right. Like Lose Your Illusion, like Dust and Bones, great song. You know, like they have a ton of great stuff, but it gets lost in the shuffle because those 4 or 5 hits that came out when they're making all of that content all at the same time, as opposed to putting out one great song at a time.
Right. I mean, they're an incredibly musical band. You know what I mean? Like their stuff really runs the gamut. And then, you know, I remember just hearing interviews over time or reading things, you know, and back because Appetite was so big and it was such a concentrated rock record that, you know, it was like frustrating for like Axl and stuff like that because he wanted to branch out and people didn't want to hear it as much of that. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of things on those Illusion records that is, it's really good music, but it's definitely not like Mr. Brownstone, you know, or Paradise City, whatever, you know. And it's like that stuff. That's a great problem to have, and it's an interesting problem to have, you know. And it's like, you know, we've definitely when more of our material comes out, it definitely branches out. It's not like all of a sudden it doesn't have like that rap and rock vibe that we have. It's just the way that we did it is a little different, and none of the songs sound like the other song. You know, and you'll even see that when the next one comes out. The second song will probably be out around July 16th or so, a little after that, you know. And, you know, even though we've been focused on STFU and building towards releasing that and having it out, it's only been out like 3.5 weeks.
Right.
We're already on to the prep of the next one, you know, and we're focused on STFU and doing what we need to do to that song, but we're already getting the next one going. And, you know, that one's going to be out sooner than everybody knows. And, you know, it'll be a little different sounding, but it sounds like this band. And it's like, you know, we're in the early stages of where we can kind of like take people on a little bit of a joyride because they're not expecting just one thing from us. Hopefully they're not, you know, maybe they are.
I honestly think that's the best route to go for any musician or any band that's trying to make it, like, just have everything sound completely different from your last track. I mean, you want to develop that unique sound to where it's like, oh, if you hear an Eddie Van Halen solo, like, oh, that's Van Halen, you know?
Right.
Guitar, that's Guns N' Roses. But at the same time, like, if you're able to expand your mind and some of your knowledge and inspirations and bring out different sounds, it's just going to make everybody better and more in tune.
Right.
You know, it's going to keep things exciting. And like, as a young kid, I wanted to ask you, you know, was that always the mentality, or was it just like, okay, I'm a rock guy, I want it to sound like that, or as opposed to, you know, having that one sound?
No, I mean, I listen to a lot of music. All of it's pretty much rock. You know, I mean, I have this playlist that I created. It's called Mellow Gold, and it's like all these really like mellow, like 60s and 70s, a lot of 70s stuff, and even 80s, like basically like soft radio hits. You know. Mm-hmm. And I love that stuff because I love the chord changes. There's a lot of very jazzy things happening in there, even if it's not jazz music. The chord changes are jazzy, you know. And I listen to that music, and even though I'm not playing that kind of music, I like to bring that sort of sensibility into what I'm doing, and just bring a little bit of like bring musicality into stuff. You know, rock music can be just very aggressive and very just rhythmic oriented, and not have a lot of thought process or too much thought process put on up in the way that the drums and the bass play with each other and stuff like that. You know, the barbaric side of rock is amazing, and everybody that plays rock, or I think, you know, a lot of men who play it, and we have a very kindred spirit with that. But there's a lot of women out there that like rock music, and I don't want to say you need to cater to them, but why would you exclude them? Why would you not do things that they can understand and feel and move them? You know what I mean? Without just trying to make music to try to get them naked kind of shit. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people like, well, I want to move women just to, you know, have sex with them. It's like, well, all right, you know, what heterosexual male doesn't want to do that, you know? But at the same time, you need to touch their souls. You know what I mean? And it's important to do that for men and women alike in the right way that the band can do it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, this is the kind of thing that I think music that we wanted to make. We wanted to speak to everybody that it should speak to. You know, we're not trying to make just generic music. They're like, hope everybody likes it. You know, it's like vanilla, but we wanted to like be expressing ourselves to the highest degree and speaking to as many people as possible. And the way that you do that, I think, is opening up and being very open to different things and different sounds and different vibes, and pull that together to make your own sound, and just not constantly copying yourself, you know, to play it safe. Like, take risks and see where that takes you in life, you know, and in music.
Do you remember the first time you ever performed in front of a live audience? Like, even if it was like as a teenager?
Probably. I think with my friends in some sort of like 7th grade or 6th grade or 5th grade or something like that. I was telling Damien, him and Russ are out right now doing some stuff, seeing the sights of LA or whatever they're doing. And I was telling Damien that I remember when I was in, I was always into skateboarding. That's why I'm watching Lords of Dogtown. So I was into skateboarding. I was into sports too. But then once I got into skateboards and guitars and stuff like that, I went into that whole world, which is like a counterculture world, you know? So I remember the first time that I was, I guess I was in the 7th grade or no. Maybe I was in the 8th grade or like the 9th grade or something like that. And I was in jazz band. And I like refused to tune my guitar to the tuning that they were in, you know? So cause I was down tuned a little bit. So I had to play bass, you know, right? So then when we weren't doing class during like lunch and stuff like that, we would jam. And me and this drummer and like some bass player, right? So we're in this room playing, and I forget what we were playing. We were playing like some sort of like medley of like Metallica and GNR and Alice in Chains and a few other bands, you know, some newer bands, stuff like that. And I remember like this super hot, popular senior girl came into the room while we were playing and just like stood there and was like watching us for a good like minute or so, whatever, you know. And like when you're that age and she's standing there, it seems like she's there for like a month, you know. And she was watching, and you can tell she was stoked, because she was listening to it, and we were playing well. Like, you know, we knew what we were doing. We were playing like really popular songs, you know? And she stood there with her backpack, and she was looking, and I saw her, and I was just like, fuck yeah. I go, I already love doing this, right? I know that for a fact. It's like, not like I decided to pick up guitar because girls like it or something like that. I love doing this already. But then that happened, and that was like a confirmation. And, you know, that wasn't the first time in front of an audience, but that was just like a first memory of like, yeah, you know? And then I think me and my friends played, you know, from some party or something like that.
Yeah, first thing that kind of brought the passion to a whole new level, as opposed to just being like, I know I like this, but at the same time, people are actually enjoying it. Like, right. I can do this for a living, you know? And
the unlikeliness of that girl too. Like, I would never have guessed that girl would even have given a shit. You know, I didn't know her. Like, I knew who she was. You know, I mean, she was a senior. I was a freshman or whatever I was, you know? And I'd seen her around school, and, you know, she always like, she doesn't know like something about Mary's or any girl who's like really supposed to be like the it girl in a movie, you know? It was almost like this girl floated, you know what I mean? But, you know, because in your mind, your crazy little 9th grade mind, you know, just like, oh my God. So for that chick to roll in and watch us and be like, she was like staring, she was like listening, and like, we all knew she was stoked, you know?
Right.
That was just like rad, you know? And that, I think that might've been one of those moments where you think like, hey, this can reach all kinds of people. There's not just the stoner people in here or the rock people in here just sitting around a band like people do. This was cream of the crop, top shelf, high school chick going like, oh, dope.
Now,
I like hearing Paradise City and Enter Sandman and whatever else these dudes were riffing through.
Right. Oh my God. So did you know early on, or how long did it kind of take you to realize like, okay, I'm good. I love doing this. How can I turn this into a career? Because again, like we talked about at the beginning, there's the business side. You got to market yourself. There's a lot of things that, you know, go along with the puzzle as opposed to just the music.
Right. Well, when I started playing music immediately, I'm very pushy. It's like, if I'm into something, I'm really into it. I like to do it at a high level. So when I was playing with my friends, we were all playing together, and they were more doing it for fun. And they were living vicariously through others. They would like put on like, they dress up like whoever they liked or whatever. And I was like, no, I like individuality, and I wanted to be an original band. So I was always like on them. And my friend, my one friend, it was funny. He was like the singer, and I would ride this guy, and it was like too much. And I remember one time he's like, dude, you're like over the top about this, man. It's like almost like you never have off on them, because this is what I want to do, you know? So what happened is I quickly moved past wanting to play with my friends because they weren't serious. So what I had to do is I had to go find outsiders and people I didn't know to play music with. So I was doing that at a very young age. And, I'd been through a lot of different people. I've only been in 4 bands in my entire lifetime. This is the 4th band, but I played with like a lot of people, and you sift through people. And every once in a while, I'll remember like, I'm like, who the fuck was this person? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it was some person who answered an ad and had me come down to their place, and that guy drummed, or this person played bass. And I can see their faces a little bit, but I can't quite remember their names, and can't quite remember the exact setting or what we were trying to do music wise, but we were definitely trying to do something, and it was always like me going over to their place and wanting to play. And, they either weren't serious enough, or they weren't good enough, or whatever the problem was, or blah, 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 but, right from the beginning, I was ready to do this on a professional level. Now, to get to a professional level takes a long journey. You know what I mean? There was tons of things that I did wrong, and I had to get better, and just learn tons of things, and just get my feet and my whole body wet, and just kind of immersed in that shit, and learn how to navigate towards it and monetize it, and not let it be something that's constantly disappointing, or something that is a hobby. By no means is this a hobby. This is my life. Right. You know what I mean? I eat, sleep, and breathe this shit. I mean, it fuels my being.
Like repetition. You got to practice constantly, hourly. You got to learn how to play in front of people, live.
Right.
You got to, again, build repertoire with people, whether you're starting your band, whether it's a solo career. You got to have a team, like not only a support team, but a business team that's going to take everything there as well.
Well, and that's just one aspect. Like playing is just one aspect of it. I'm a very business-minded person. I'm all about it. I'm the de facto leader of that. And that's a whole nother thing that you had to learn. So over like the last, 15, 20 years of my life, I worked for Live Nation for 11 years. I worked at concerts. So I learned, that was like my music college, my music business college. So I did that. And then just trial and error of like being in the bands that I was, of people I've been around, of people that I've met in the industry. I'm always talking to those people and getting, learning from them, and paying attention and spending a lot of time with more people like that, partying and goofing around. Don't get me wrong, I party and goof around. Right. But I focus on that, and I soak it up, and I learn, and I'm not afraid to ask questions, and I take phone calls. Like if anybody business oriented, my attorney, Eric German, knows this. He can call me at any time, and I will answer the phone, and I will discuss whatever we need to discuss and make it happen. If he called me at 4 a.m, and goes, "Hey, dude, we need to do this, make it happen," I'll do it. And not in subservient kind of like ass kissy kind of way, just kind of like it's on. Like I'm like a fucking hitman, like, or Boba Fett. You know what I mean? Like if I got to do some shit, like Boba Fett like didn't do anything until he was supposed to do something.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
He's kind of camped out.
Yeah, just waited till he was ready to do that thing he was supposed to do. And for lack of a better term, that's what I did.
But you were really smart about it, working with Live Nation for as long as you did, over a decade, because you're learning there on the fly, as opposed to just finding other gigs to make money so that you can keep, touring, you keep going on.
Well, I did. I had, just like anybody else, I had normal jobs, and I lost my job. The place that I worked at with my friend just got rid of us, like not because we did a bad job, they were just downsizing, so we lost our jobs. And I remember he and I were walking down the hallway, we were like shell shocked because we got let go, right? And he goes, "Oh man," he goes, "Well, like what are you gonna do?" And I go, "I'm not getting another job." Yeah. And that's what I really said. I'm not making this up. And he goes, he was just kind of confused, like, shit, what do we do? And I didn't. I never got another normal job again. And luckily, Live Nation thing, my aunt pulled me into it. She was working for like the catering company and starting to work at shows, and she called me up to work at a show one day out of the blue in the morning, and I went and did it. And from that point till I stopped doing it was just a great ride of working at every kind of show you can imagine, seeing every artist, dealing with managers, dealing with their tour production, dealing with other runners and fans and artists and stuff like that. You have no you do one of two things. You're oblivious to it for some weird reason, or you soak it up and you let it mold you, and you go and put your own spin on it in the world. And that's what I did.
Yeah, you got to take like bits and pieces of other inspirations that you have, and then take your own style and let that again sink in, like kind of like a sponge. You're a sponge in these moments where you're taking in all this knowledge, and
right?
You're not forgetting about your own identity, your own style. Right. What's going to form
you learn what to do and what not to do. You learn what works, what doesn't work, and then during that time period, you're like you're changing and growing as a person, and you're also working. You're working. I worked really hard. I still have a lot of friends that work for Live Nation, and they work really hard. When you're doing a stadium show and you're there for like 15 days, and the days just blur into each other. And like for hours, there's nothing happening. And all of a sudden, like there's this crazy fire you have to put out. And I don't mean a literal fire, I mean a problem, and then, your nerves get shot. And when you're an artist, while you're doing that, you still have to keep that fire inside of you that you want to be the one who gets on that stage. And I'll be like, well, I made $5,000 over the last 14 days doing this show. That's good enough for me. Like the pay was great and that was all good, but I wasn't satisfied with that. I have to be on stage doing that. I want to be on the Rose Bowl, the stage of the Rose Bowl playing and not backstage working. And that's nothing against anybody backstage working. They all do a great job and they work hard, but my calling is on the stage, and I'm super grateful that I got all that knowledge and learned and knew that fire was inside me, that I don't have to worry like, oh man, how long will I do this for? Or maybe there's something else for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Life will take you in many directions and there's all kinds of things for you, but when something's your passion, you continue to do that no matter what. I would do this whether anybody listened or not, or whether I got one penny or not,
I mean, you paid your dues.
Sure.
Who's the most
and there's way more to pay. You never really stop paying your dues.
No, I mean, you learn that every day. Just when you think you've figured out everything, God puts something else in front of you. You're like, oh, that'll humble me.
Right.
Was there a one specific band that was the most difficult to work with during your time at Live Nation?
Oh, yeah, always. I don't want to name them. I mean, they're really big, and they're
always
like
the big bands.
They're like U2, but not cool U2. If you can recall that, you can deduce on your own who that might be.
I'll connect the dots later on. I'll let you know.
They play in like stadiums, and they're just yeah. And I don't even know. It's hard to tell if it's them. I know one thing that I learned from the guy that I work for. He was really important to me. Like when I was first starting, I was a runner. And a runner is basically you show up in your car, you drive around for the production all day. And that could be anything from like picking up their bus drivers back and forth to the hotel, taking laundry in, grocery shopping for the buses, constant runs to like Staples and Office Depot. You go to Home Depot a cajillion times. You just run around. You know what I mean? And you're their wheels because they're in on a tour bus. They can't leave. And I was getting beat up pretty bad by whoever I was working for. And I remember talking to the guy that I worked for, and I was like, dude, what's up with these people? And he goes, pulled me aside. And he goes, look, Mike, he goes, it starts from the top. He goes, if the artist is an asshole, it trickles down. So he goes, so if the production manager's a fucking jerk off, it's coming from somebody bigger than him, and it just goes down the line. And I just kind of learned that. And look, sometimes you just catch people on the wrong day. It's stressful. You don't get a lot of sleep out on the road. There's a lot of shit going on. There's a lot of moving parts. So you have to be understanding, but sometimes you can just tell that they're just like nasty people and they just have it out for you for no real reason other than you're the low person on the totem pole, which is weak. You know what I mean? And you kind of just learn from there because it's like, in my opinion, it's a really, really, really awesome industry. And it's a privilege, not a right to be able to be doing that rad, cool rock shit and music stuff. So why treat people shitty? People get into it. I get it. And I get pissed off all the time and I get frustrated. But if you're just treating people poorly because you can, that's just lame.
I don't know where that stems from, just early on frustrations and then finally making it and just continuing to be an asshole.
It stems from where everything else, all the other problems stem from childhood. Pretty much everybody you ever meet that's fucked up or weird, it's from their childhood. And it's not addressing it, not changing it, not fixing it, not working on it. And that's pretty much it. Those are those years. It's like, I don't think most people are like really cool for a long time and just at 43 decide to be a fucking dickhead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They've usually had those problems. It sucks. I mean, it sucks to have like some really bad parents who have like put you in a wrong place for your life. But it behooves one to do the work to get past those things so you aren't living your present life stuck in emotions from years and years and years ago. Taking that shit out on people and people don't get it. Like, not everybody has time to be like, hey man, what the fuck happened to you in third grade? You know what I mean? And if you're not wearing a fucking sign that tells everybody what it is, how do they know?
Right.
They're just trying to do whatever they're doing. And, and you just happen to be there at the same time.
Just dumping all their insecurities on you like a dumpster truck.
I can't get down with that shit, man. I'm too busy and I'm too streamlined and too focused and too move forward. It's like, I'm actually really good at helping people and stuff like that, but it takes a lot out of you and it takes a lot of time and effort. And if they're not going to do the work, I'm certainly not just going to listen to it and try to help. you know, and try to almost like take on the responsibility sometimes of that shit. It's like, they got to do the work. I'm here to help and I'm here to listen. And I do care enough because I want people to do cool shit and be on the level, especially when they're involved with me, you know, especially.
It just halts shit, you know, like you're focused, you're determined, you know what you want, you know, like you surround yourself with people who are like-minded as opposed to people that are either toxic, they're going to bring you down. Like you figured it out along the way, like who you need to surround yourself with in order to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish.
Totally. And I take shit. I take a lot of shit. I take shit from certain people because I am so driven. I'm outspoken and I know what I do want. And I do like to take that leadership role. And I you know, just like an NFL coach, you know, they get blamed when the fucking team doesn't win, you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, it's on them a lot of ways, but it's on everybody. Everybody has to do their role, you know? I mean, if you get to the Super Bowl and you lose by a field goal, it's hard to call that on the coach, you know? It sucks to have to blame the kicker too, but I mean, that's kind of how that game works, you know? And people just get like blamed for weird reasons. A lot of people don't want to take blame, you know? And it's just, to me, it's just a responsible thing to be like, hey man, I'm responsible for my actions. And if I'm trying to lead here and stuff like that, I'll be responsible for that too. But it would really be awesome if you were responsible for what you're doing and we work together.
Right.
You know?
I mean, it's kind of like a stingy feeling when stuff like that happens, but you got to take accountability for it or else it's just going to pander and grow, you know, like that one thing is going to show up again next week when you do something else wrong and you let people down. Always. Anytime you don't really address something or really deal with something, it comes back at some weird time. Often, usually when somebody's intoxicated on something in the weirdest moment, it's like, boom, it hits you and you're like, what the fuck is this shit? You know what I mean? Because a lot of people don't say what's really on their mind. You know, I do all the time, which can be off-putting to people, you know, at times. And I try to be as, not politically correct, that's for sure, but I try to be as real about it as possible, so it doesn't sound like it's just, you know, me sounding off or me trying to, you know, be self-important. Right. You know, just I'm 9 times out of 10 I'm trying to make something happen. Even when I'm just sitting there with somebody, I'm usually trying to make something happen, and that's not always fair to them. I get it, you know, but you know, it's just what it comes down to in life is just how you can work with others and what kind of synergy you can have together and what kind of cool shit we can make happen while we're here. You know, who the fuck knows how long we're here for, you know? Exactly. Don't have no clue about that kind of stuff. I have no understanding of why we're really here. I just know that I'm supposedly here. I can feel myself. I know I'm here for whatever reason. I'm stoked on these things and I'm really driven about them. And that's what I like to do. You know? Well, you've obviously thought a lot of this stuff through, and you being, you know, as authentic as you are, you know, just being yourself, staying true to yourself. And this is the last thing I'll ask you. I don't want to take too much of your time today, but
yeah, no worries.
So you obviously taking it day by day, you know, STFU single came out a few weeks ago. You guys obviously as Reddstar still trying to, again, I feel like get more under your belt, obviously, since you guys are brand new. And taking all of these experiences that you've had before, you know, growing up, having, you know, being inspired by music, working at Live Nation for 11 years, having all these different gigs to get you to where you are now. I mean, I know, again, like you're taking it day by day, but are there specific dreams, specific goals in mind that you're looking to manifest? Or is it, again, just taking it day by day, seeing what God has for?
I wouldn't even say day by day. I would say moment by moment. You know what I mean? You go just moment by moment. There's a whole bunch of things that happen. Some days, nothing really much happens, you know, and some days it's packed, you know, but I think moment to moment. And trust yourself to believe in what you're doing and believe in yourself and believe in the others around you, whether it's just for something musical or just for the good of mankind. What's going to do something positive in the world? You know what I mean? I say all kinds of fucked up things, you know, and usually in regards to being humorous, you know, but I know for a fact that I'm trying to do cool shit. You know, now some people don't think being in a rock band is cool shit, but others think it's the greatest thing ever. You know what I mean? So I know that if I inspire people to feel inspired and to feel stoked that they can do something cool, I did the job that I wanted to do. Yeah. And in a moment to moment basis, you as long as you keep on that road, you're going to go on a bunch of different roads anyways, because that's just how life is, you know? It's going to throw you all kinds of crazy curveballs, and you're going to end up in places you never thought you would ever be at, you know? And it's not A to B. It goes from A to J to L to I to Z, back to A, over to D, you know what I mean? It goes all over the place. But You just have to stay on your own road and your own truth, you know, and I hope that doesn't sound cheesy. Right. And just do the best you can and be the most honest that you can be with yourself and others, and just see what you can make happen, you know? And as far as the band is concerned, I look at it this way. I've been through so much shit with different bands and different people and different stuff and different scenarios. I kind of tell my band and the people around us that I don't want to seem flippant, but I don't want to sit there and worry about things all the time, because worrying doesn't do anything. If you already know that you're focused and you're doing a really good job and you're being honest and your intentions are pure, something good will happen regardless. You know, it's just getting used to that ping pong of the road and not having that freak you out, you know, and not going under, you know. It's like in a fight. If you come out in a boxing match and you get rocked, you have to come back from that. If you get scared, you're done. You'll be down either later that round or the next round. But if you shake it off and get refocused, you can bounce back. And that's pretty much just what life is. Taking a bunch of fucking punches, brushing them off, and bouncing back.
About staying true to yourself, doing what you love. And again, through all that stuff, you know, taking the punches, rolling with the punches, dusting yourself off, getting back up, you're looking to inspire others who are looking up to you, that are going to be like, oh, wow, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, some of they sound like, some of them sound like horrible cliches that have been said all the time, or something that would be on a coffee mug or whatever, you know, but they're there for a reason. They're true. If you take away the quotations, and I've heard that before, it really is what life is about. And that's what you really have to do. Everybody has these grandiose ideas of what they can do. And some people think they can't do anything. And it's just finding out, like, I think the people who think they can't do anything need to figure out a way to do something and be excited about it. And I think the people who think that everything's supposed to be perfect and amazing have to figure out a way to be like, hey, well, wait a minute, nothing's perfect and amazing. And find all the middle ground there and have it work with your strengths. You know what I mean? Be aware of your weaknesses and don't hide them. Deal with them. Let those weaknesses kind of like, you know, get into strengths or get into the more middle ground area, and then use your strengths to do cool shit.
Yeah.
You know? And that's just, to me, that's just what it is in every scenario, you know?
Is any of the stuff you guys are writing inspired by these words?
I don't know. I mean, the music is, I mean, look, I come up with songs just because I come up with them. I don't set out to come up with a song because I'm thinking a certain way. Nine times out of 10, I've got like a Quentin Tarantino movie on, or something I've seen a million times, and I'm playing the guitar, and I'll feel like I have an idea, and I'll start to record it. And I just go with it from there. And then you start to look like, oh, wait, maybe I'm too far off here, and this doesn't sound like something we could do as a band, or maybe we can take a risk here, you know? I mean, I don't always just come up with a song just for this band. I won't explore some of those things sometimes because I'm not going to really use them. I mean, maybe I'll just do it to like challenge myself, you know what I mean? But as far as like writing songs for the band is concerned, I always have Damien in mind because he's a singer, right? I go, what will he slay over? What will bring out the most in him? And then I know it's going to take another level anyways when he gets it, and when Sahaj gets around it, or whoever we're working with, you know, and when the other guys in the band get to it as well. But it's not calculated. It's just a thing you do. And then if it's coming out of you naturally, it'll find its way. That's my opinion.
Right.
And then you just refine it later. If like the parts don't make sense or something like that, and you have to make it more like your band or whatever, that'll happen, you know?
Well, it's very.
But it's not, what I'm getting at is it's not calculated as much as it could be. At times it is. We were asked to do a song for a video game, and they wanted a specific vibe, and I went for that. And I came up with a couple of different things, and I wasn't on the right path the first couple of tries, and I sent something else to the guy, and he's like, dude, roll with that. We just finished that song. It's called Hit and Run, and it's for a ATV motocross game. But it sounds like us, but it was written for something specific.
Right.
You know, so in that regard, yes, we did do something specific, but everything else, we kind of just like, you know, we're just pulling our particular emotions and vibes and energies at where we're at now and letting that take us. And then, you know, everything changes. Like something can sound a certain way, go in the studio, it sounds different.
Well, I'm very excited for you guys moving forward. Again, the new single STFU is out now. You guys got new material coming out soon throughout the year.
Yeah.
Again, Mikey, thanks so much for being gracious enough to take the time.
Yeah,
I didn't take too much of your Friday. I tend
No,
to
it's all good.
a lot of questions. I get very curious sometimes. So
Yeah, no, I like it. I appreciate you having me. And I appreciate, we'll tell the listeners, I appreciate you still being on here when I came in like 15, 20 minutes late. I didn't get the email. So I was like, oh no.
Dude,
And I'm pretty tired from the last couple of days of shooting too. So I'm like I'm aware, but I'm out of it. So I'm like on some other plane a little bit.
It's a valid excuse. I never really had some for some of my Zoom college courses over the past few years. So I would always just show up 15, 20 minutes late, just saying, it never happened, technology. But
Yeah.
I'm glad you got this done, man. And again, best of luck to the band moving forward.
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate you having me.